Hello, my name is Michelle Taylor. I am the founder and executive director of Thyself Summer School. I am so happy that you have joined us this evening, and we are in for a treat. This is our sixth year running this program, and each of the classes have been selected to represent the diversity and the beauty of people of the African diaspora. I brought in some experts who are going to share everything that they know with you. We hope that you are engaged in this class, that you keep it interactive, have questions for our facilitator, and overall, I hope that you just really enjoy yourself and gain something, some new knowledge from this. We're so happy that you're here. At the end of the class, please consider filling out the feedback form. It helps us improve every single year. And without further ado, here's your class.
Welcome, everyone. Today's conversation is called Breaking the Chains. We will examine the work of Dr. Naim Akbar and explore what it means to develop knowledge of self through history, culture, spirituality, responsibility, and practice. So, this is not simply a lecture about a psychologist or a collection of books. It's really about conversation about us, how we understand ourselves, how we're being taught to see ourselves, and what ideas we may need to remember, question, or unlearn. So before we begin, think about this privately for a second. When you hear the phrase knowledge of self, what's that first word, image in your mind, or idea that comes to mind? I'm going to repeat that as y'all are thinking. When you hear the phrase knowledge of self, what's the first word, image, or idea that comes to mind? And as you're thinking about it, here's our guiding question throughout our conversation this evening. What can we remember, unlearn, and practice so that freedom becomes eternal as well as external? There not be one final answer because our goal is to leave with better questions, deeper awareness, and at least one practice we can apply tonight. To understand Akbar's work, we must first understand the intellectual foundation from which much of it emerged, Afrocentricity. Now, it has asked us to reconsider where we stand, where we study history, psychology, education, culture, or human development. Much of our formal education has presented where we stand from European experiences as a primary reference point. Other people and cultures are often introduced only in relation to Europe. This changes that starting point. It asks that Africana people be understood as subjects, people who think for themselves, build, interpret, create, and act, not merely as subjects being observed, classified, rescued, or described by someone else. Again, not merely as objects being observed, classified, rescued, or described by someone else. Another question as we're thinking about this: what changes when Africana people become the subjects of the lesson rather than objects of the lesson? What changes when Africana people become the subjects of the lesson rather than the objects of the lesson? Now think about that for a second. You can put your responses in the chat and I will see your responses. Just think about that. Are we the subjects rather than the objects of the lesson being told? Because we're focused on dignity, right? Perspective, your agency, the accuracy, pride, belonging, and responsibility. Mind you, Afrocentricity is not simply placing African images into an unchanged curriculum. It has deeper questions. I want to think as you are looking at this slide, just think about who's at the center of this. Whose worldview is treated as normal? Now this question might slip your minds a little bit. Who gets to interpret the evidence? Who gets to interpret the evidence of what's being investigated? Because conversations about identity and oppression can become deeply personal. We need to establish how we will engage one another. And as we talk about community agreements, now first through this conversation, we must really establish the environment. This subject requires more than intelligence. It truly requires humility, courage, care, and emotional discipline. Adding controversial commentary. Speaking from our own learning means we do not have to represent every Black person, every African culture, and every person in our families. You will have different perspectives from people from diaspora on how we do this thing, right? Because holding this complexity means we can acknowledge historical harm while also recognizing cultural strength. We can discuss psychology, we can discuss faith, we can discuss identity, the politics around all this, the community, without pretending they are completely separate. Now, as y'all see these 4 points on here, and please feel free to put in the chat, which agreements do y'all see do you believe will be the most important for today's conversation? Which one should we add? As y'all can see here, do you speak from your own perspectives? Do you listen for understanding before responding? How we move away from the shame that was placed upon us and move towards responsibility, healing, and practice. Because that's knowledge of self. Once you know who you are and your place in the world, you'll be liberated in freedom. If not, you're doomed to repeat the same mistakes as before. Just ponder that for a second. Now that how we established this posture of the conversation, let's now identify what we are working towards. Yes, listen for understanding. I 100% agree. Because it ain't about Keith. It ain't about Keith. It ain't about John Doe. It's about, do I understanding from your perspective? What can I learn from you today? So great. So definitely I want to make sure that we have outcomes from this conversation, right? These outcomes are not simply facts I want you to repeat, right? They describe that I hope you can understand, explain to others, right? Because part of this is hopefully from this conversation, you can teach other people, right? That's the goal, right? For once you understand knowledge of self, who you are, your place in the world, who Dr. Naeem Akbar is, what he done for his contribution towards society. What's your call to action? What are you going to do with this knowledge, right? Because from my understanding, knowledge is sharing to other people. Because once you know better, you know the rest, you do better, right? And which outcome, as y'all can see, which outcome feels most personal and relevant to you today? From these outcomes, right? I'm going to talk about Naeem's background, his books, connecting knowledge of self, explaining Afrocentricity as a way of centering Africana people. Which one? Think about again. Put in the chat. Which one of these? And I apologize. I'm really excited about this because this is what I do. I love this stuff. Which one of these resonate with y'all today? Again, place in the chat. I can see the chat as well. So, because at the end of this, I would ask people to place in the chat to really identify. You saw it before. Identify one chain, right, to examine, and one practice to strengthen. A chain might be a belief you thought of. It might be a fear. It could be a habit. It could be a stereotype. It could be assumptions or the inherited stories that limit your how you understanding yourself, right? Because you've been told, oh, I ain't nothing, I'm full of ish. You've been told that for the last 340 years. So what chain might be a belief, fear, or habit that you want to break today? So think about that as we, guide this discussion. I like that number 3, connecting to knowledge of self. Absolutely. So as we kind of have discussion, I want to really set the stage on this amazing individual I had the pleasure of talking to briefly. Dr. Naeem Akbar is a clinical psychologist, educator, author, scholar, and lecturer whose work helped shape the field of African-centered psychology. He was born Luther Benjamin Weems Jr. in Tallahassee, Florida, and earned his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in psychology from the University of Michigan. Now, I don't want us to remain in the biography for too long because the most important question is, where did he work, right? Where did Naeem Akbar work? What's that one central problem he tried to solve for the community? Akbar challenged psychology to consider what happens with Black history, the culture, spirituality, family, and community are treated as central rather than less than. Because during his studies the last 40, 50 plus years, he challenged psychology to consider what happens with the Black history, culture, spirituality, family, and community are treated as central rather than less than. To appreciate why this question mattered, we must first understand the historical environment in which African-centered psychology developed. Establishing a problem, psychology has never developed outside of history. Like any other academic discipline, it has been influenced by the societies, the assumptions, and the power structure surrounding it, right? The Black communities were often studied through frameworks that emphasize pathology, deficiency, criminality, or failure. The European American assumptions were frequently treated as universal definitions of a healthy development. Yeah, they struggling, they cool. Don't worry about them. They have high health disparities. That's the framework that's unfortunately being painted in the Black communities. I'm gonna pause there for 1 second because Naeem Akbar saw this. Because now it requires a reconstruction of the mind. Once you, again, like I said, know better, you do better. So now his doing his research, Akbar realized that there needs to be a better way to understand this, the trauma, the racism, the segregation. Because the goal is to unlearn, relearn, deconstruct, and reconstruct the mind. Imagining assessing a person's behavior, right? By considering, like I mentioned, the racism, segregation, economic exclusion, culture disruption, family survival, cultural trauma, the assessment may describe what the person's doing while completely misunderstanding why. Like I said, we imagine that all that I just mentioned, and we still misunderstood, right? Oh, they gonna be all right. They gonna survive. They cool. They don't need no help. So now African-centered psychologists began asking different questions. What is considered normal under oppressive conditions? What's considered normal, right? Is adjustment to a healthy society always evidence of health? Think about that. Can healing occur without cultural memory? How can I heal if I don't know where I came from? Can healing occur? Do I know what happened 100 years ago? Can I actually heal? I don't know what I'm healing from. Does mental health belong only to individuals, or also to families and communities. Once I'm healed, my job now is to heal my family and my community that's around me. But I'm sorry, we ain't gonna go there. If I know where I came from, then I can able to tell my family their power as a people. Then I can tell my community. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll make sure I'm not the only person in this space recognizing the healing part. Because Akbar's work begins to a larger effort to reconstruct psychology from a different location. His name change, like I mentioned his original name before. His name change also illustrates the importance of self-definition. And why the name change matters. Akbar was born, like I mentioned, Luther Benjamin Weems Jr. The historical record indicates that he changed his name after joining the Nation of Islam. During that time frame between the establishment of the Nation of Islam, people are black. We wanted to feel empowered. We wanted to feel a sense of belonging. And Akbar was saying, "Hey, I want to feel the same thing." He joined the Nation of Islam in 1971, changed his name to Naim Akbar. We should be careful not to invite private motives that he did not explicitly provide, right? However, within this conversation, the name change gives us an opportunity to consider self-definition. Do you know what your name means? Keith Green. Green, the last name the surname comes from Ireland. Keith is a surname that was passed down from generation to generation. So the name means something. Your name means purpose and power. Now, as we think about the mention of the name, pondering this question: what's the difference between a name assigned to you, whether it be your parents, whoever gave your name to you, and a name that expresses who you're becoming? Think about that. What does your name represent in this space and place in time? For those, I forgot to say y'all in the beginning, I'm actually Igbo American from Nigeria. My Igbo name is Izuchukwu Okori, meaning God's plan born in EK Day. Because I read Akbar's book, I was motivated to get my name changed. So while you see English named after Keith Green, my Igbo name, my purpose name is Izuchukwu Okori, meaning born in EK Day, Igbo. I'm going to let y'all reflect on that real quick because your name has purpose. Because this question is largely than legally changing your name. People are assigned many names, right? It could be troublemaker. Like, hey, you're a troublemaker. You ain't no good. It could be gifted. It could be average. Too black. Successful, failure. Not black enough. Some of these labels describe us, while others attempt to confine us. I gave y'all a list of names, right, that placed on us. Right, just at risk, you too black. I've been told that. Keep you too black. What else am I going to be? My skin can't be too black. I'm sorry, I ain't going to get off track. All this to say, knowledge of self begins when people develop their ability to name themselves, narrate themselves, and interpret themselves. I'm going to say that again. Knowledge of self begins when people develop the ability to name themselves, narrate themselves, and interpret themselves. To organize all these ideas I've just provided, we will use 4 anchors throughout the remaining of our conversation today to really, truly understand the flow, how these are done. The 4 anchors are identity, the memory, spirit, and practice. The identity asks, who am I? when domination, stereotypes, and external expectations are no longer permitted to define me. Memory asks, what history do I carry for myself? And what information has gone forgotten, distorted, or hidden? The spirit asks, what gives human life meaning beyond status, your degrees, titles, possessions, my car, my house, and external approval? The last pillar, the last anchor, practice asks, what habits make liberation visible in everyday life? We're talking about application for a sec. Practice means application. So what habits make liberation visible in everyday life? Which of these four anchors do y'all believe is most neglected today? Just think about that. Put in the chat as well. Which of these four anchors I just provided do you believe is most neglected today? And keep in mind, these are not just four separate subjects. Exactly. Listen, because these are not separate things. These are interconnected. Because identity without memory can become shallow. Again, if you don't know who you are, where you came from, it becomes shallow. Memory without meaning can become nostalgic. Oh, yes, we did this, we did that. Okay, yeah, I already know about Booker T and Du Bois and Jay. Okay, yeah, nostalgic, it's cool. Meaning without practice can remain inspirational but ineffective. We can just quote all this stuff, quote history, we quote stuff in the classroom, but yeah, I'm inspired. I'm ready to go, but it's ineffective if you're not doing action behind it. Like the blueprints were given to us for centuries because of the memory. So we know based on what we read what to do. But if you're not applying any practice or application to that, what you're seeking or what you're reading, you're just reading. Read is great. I love to read too. But where's the practice at, partner? Where's the application? That's where people get stuck a little bit. Therefore, we need to find others who have the same mindset to get the job done. Okay, I'm sorry. These four anchors lead us to one of the most important ideas in Akbar's work, knowledge of self. Once you got these four anchors on, how about saying the four anchors? You know who you are, your place in the world, your purpose to carry out what you're supposed to do according to your calling. Now, as we go to the next part of this is a discussion. I want to frame this book. This is one of my favorite books. I got this at home as well. Knowledge of Self. Great book. Great book. When people hear knowledge of self, they may think it simply means confidence or positive self-esteem. Oh, I know who I am. I got good confidence. It's a little more demanding than that. It's got a little more demand to it because it involves truthful history. It involves cultural grounding. You got to be 10 toes down when you talk about knowledge of self because you will get challenged by your own people, by your own family. Once you know who you are, your purpose in this space and place, because it does have spiritual meaning to it. You have a community responsibility and disciplined action to it. Now, I'm going to walk through these four questions again. I love questions. I want people to think. Instead of me talking, just add, just add a couple of questions here. For your name, what labels have shaped me, right? I've been called no good. I've been called this growing up. I've been called that. I will admit, some of that has shaped me as a human being. Before I got to knowledge of self, my affirmation came from external perspectives, right? My memory, what stories have formed me? Luckily, I had people growing up. My grandmother, grandfather, my uncles and aunts gave me a clear perspective on how they grew up while being Black in America. My purpose, what are you called to build? What are you here to build? Are you here to build others? Are you here to build the next generation of learners. Like, think about that purpose part. What am I called to build tonight? Why am I here? Why am I even in this session? Something drew you here tonight. So think about your purpose here. What are you called to build tonight? Practice. What habits demonstrate what I claim to believe? What do you believe in? What's your habits? Because again, this is application. This is actually a verb. This is action, right? You have to practice what you preach. If I want to help the community out, if I'm going to do curriculum redesign, if I'm going to help with film to display more of us in there, do something about it. Do something about it. Because I feel my spirit in my heart is the time to do it now. It's the time to do it right now. You can't stop. You guys we got to get out those stands. We got to leave the stands actually get on the playing field, partner, because it's serious. And now down here, as you can see here, just again, I love giving people things to do, right? And you all have a copy of these slides. Just to know thyself more deeply, I need to do what? To remember what? My past, my family, and practice what? Discipline, focus. Just think about that. To know yourself more deeply, right? To get into this, I need to do what? I need to remember what about Keith Green, Izuchukwu Carter, the direct descendant of the Erie Kingdom in Nigeria, and practice what? My spirituality, right? And what I appreciate, about this is, how, again, knowledge, all this knowledge we're getting so far, how you connect it to action, right? You can learn, you can read a book all day. That's great. Great. I love reading too, but how do you apply it to action now? As y'all think about what I've said so far, how do you apply all these principles, all these anchors, all these conversations to action? Right. And now as you can see here, we're getting to the more of the African-centric psychology of things, right? Because it studies the human mind and human development while bringing the African history, the culture, spirituality, community, life, and lived experiences. I want to stress the word centered. It does not mean that every Black person has the same experience. Because you may grow up in Michigan, you may grow up in California, you may grow up in South America, you may grow up in Africa, you may grow up in Europe, right? It means Black life is not treated as a deviation from someone else's experience. I want y'all to understand that. It means Black life is not treated as a deviation from someone else's experience. When studying, now we're going to, okay, we got that right. When studying a particular problem, African-centered psychology encourages us to ask, who defined the problem? Who defined the problem? Was it us define the problem, or was it somebody else? What type of assumptions are built into that definition? Who benefited from the definition? Watch that now. Who benefited from that definition? What cultural information has been ignored? I hope I didn't scare you. I hope I'm not scaring you when I say all this. What would healing actually look like if the people most affected helped define it? What would healing, right? Because once you know where you came from, once you know the traumas, once you know about everything, right? You know who you are in your place in the world by studying the past. Sankofa, the name of the summer school, Sankofa. Go back and fetch it. Once you know about that, the power that you have. Ooh, I guess power for the cause. They're intertwined. Once you know, again, your cultural history, because there's a center to all this, right? You have knowledge of self, that I am a descendant of X, Y, and Z. I am descendant of what my grandfather, my great grandparents did. I have a true understanding of who I am as a person. That I'm grounded in the principles, the cultures, the values that was before me. And my duty now, as the president as we speak at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, what am I doing with all the information? So yes, it is a broader history, cultural history. But again, everybody's history is different. Everybody came from different paths. The message is the same. Once you know your purpose, who you are, your place in the world, how are you taking the information to application and action? That's a great question. So I'm gonna give y'all an example. If a student appears disengaged, right, one framework may immediately ask what is wrong with that student. Hey, dog, what's wrong with you? A fuller framework may also ask whether the curriculum is relevant to that person. But things have changed. Curriculum has changed last couple decades, right? So again, a fuller framework may also ask whether the curriculum is relevant, whether the student feels recognized, whether the environment communicates belonging, and whether the institution understands the student's reality. We got to be in tune with what's going on. We must, as a people, especially now, especially students, the next generation of scholars coming through, is what I'm teaching relevant to them? How can I still attach what we talking about tonight to the next generation, right? So you have to really be mindful on how we, again, knowledge of self, or what you know about for whence you came from, your place in the world. How can I teach that to other people? Because if that was the case, you all, for context, you'll see different data points on our health, our wealth, right? How we communicate to each other, that'll be different. It all comes from one source, knowledge of self. We all might not agree on the same thing, but the intent is the same, right? Remember the intent. We don't have to agree on certain beliefs and principles and values, but the intent is there, right? If me and whoever believe that we're here to solve a problem for certain communities, and this is the game plan, get it done, at knowledge of self. And do y'all see the connections now? How everything flows like a river from the starting point to where we are now? Just think about that. Think about how everything we're talking about so far is interconnected. Because Afrocentricity changes the center of the question. Because Akbar applies that center to the mind, identity, behavior, and human development. It asks where are Africana people located in our story. Akbar asks, okay, what happens psychologically when people are displaced from their own story? I'm gonna repeat the question for y'all to ponder again. Where are we located in the story, right? In this time frame, right? From BC times to AD times to whoever time frame you all believe in. What happens psychologically, right? When people are displaced from their own story. We know the history, right? We know the history. But when you're displaced from the history, where we are in this space. That distinction is very important. One addresses the structure of knowledge, the other examines what those structures may do to the person in the community, right? How does that affect your mind? How does that affect your mind when you're, understanding that? What can happen internally when people are constantly see themselves described by others, but rarely see themselves interpreting the world? So we rely on other people to describe who we are as the people. It's keep happening in the media, in entertainment, in healthcare, in education, in economics. in law, in politics. We can keep going. We can keep going down that rabbit hole. Now, as I go forward, one of Akbar's most recognized books recognizes and examines how these patterns can continue even after legal conditions change. Right? Breaking the chains of psychological slavery. Right, I'm taking my time. This was again my second favorite book. Its central premise is that legal freedom and psychological freedom are connected, but they're not necessarily identical, right? Yeah, 1865, the Emancipation Proclamation said that we're free, right? But how do they impact our mindset, real quick? There's not an invitation to blame the oppressed people for the effects of oppression. People do not choose the wounds inflicted upon them. However, going back to what we said earlier, healing often requires recognizing how those wounds continue to influence beliefs, relationships, institutions, and behavior. Right, going back to that healing part. We got to recognize these wounds, how they continue to this day, influence behaviors and beliefs, and how you treat each other. That's what we're talking about, breaking the chains. Once you recognize that this belief system, we got to break that chain. Our fears, our doubts. Yes, that we recognize what happened. We need to, our job is, yes, dehumanizing, absolutely. Recognize that. Don't shy away. Yes, we know that. Don't shy. This, you have to embrace it, and okay, that happened, absolutely. Because again, y'all see the discussion. What is that one chain that education can help people examine with care and courage? You got to be courageous to talk about things like this. Right? Because Akbar invites readers to examine problems and patterns involving fear, dependency, disunity, distorted self-image, and inherited wounds. You should never allow, I repeat, never allow somebody to tell you otherwise, that you're a proud black man and a proud black woman. That's your identity. You shouldn't hear otherwise who you are as a person. You are a beautiful black person on this earth for a reason. That's breaking the chain. That's breaking the chain, people, of psychological slavery. You not allow other people to tell you who you are as a person. You are the original person. You are the original man and woman that the ancestors, the universe created to be on this earth for a purpose. That's the chain. Now the question comes, what would it look like to break that chain? What would it require? So from my experience, it would require a lot of therapy. It requires a lot of self reflection, a lot of meditation, to break that mindset, to go to again deconstruct what you learned, the deconstruction, all that stuff, doubt, belief, failure. Got to do a lot of deconstruction to reconstruct that mind to a better person. Have you made it? Nobody makes it. Have we gotten better? Absolutely. Because once you take that courage and identify what that chain was, that chain in your mindset, come on, y'all. But it's going to require that work. Together, not by ourselves. Because breaking the chain, naming that chain, let me step back. Naming that chain is not the same as condemning the person carrying it. Don't condemn me, dog. Help me out. Don't condemn me. Don't do that. You can't condemn somebody because they're not where you are. That's not what it's all about. The purpose of naming it is to make healing possible. Once you name that thing, wherever it is, because you know better than I do what that chain is. You know better than I do what that chain is. I'm pretty sure some of us got the similar chains: the fear, the doubt, the mistrust, the self-image. Breaking that chain requires more than identifying what has harmed us. It also requires understanding who are we becoming. Oof. Once you know who you're becoming, once you know your God's given design and purpose for you, you're gonna move a mountain. Let me repeat that. Once you know who you're becoming, we could talk about again Dr. Naeem Akbar. We could talk about Carji Wilson. These are ordinary people. These are ordinary men. Basically Coleman, Asante Shakur. These are number. Once you know who you're becoming, once you know who you are as a person, the sky's the limit. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Toussaint Louverture. Once you know, again, these are normal people. These are normal folks, right? Just had that simple vision. Like, this is my purpose. This is my vision. I'm gonna go with it. But understanding this, y'all, as I transition to the next slide, you got to understand what that cost is. That's gonna be part. Understand that cost. Everything I just said. Once you know who you are, your purpose, your calling, your vision, he'll take care of you. Right? Just recognizing that. Again, we had discussion about this, again, going back to my favorite book, right? Know Thyself. To examine the identity, consciousness, values, purpose, and responsibility. Once you know knowledge of self, what's your responsibility now? Right? What are you supposed to do? You got your purpose, right? You know who you are. You know where you're trying to go. Now, what's your responsibility? What part of yourself have you understood better because someone has taught you your history? Once you know what you've done in history, once you know what you're doing now, whether it be for your family, for yourself, or your community, what's your responsibility? Because this already been preordained for us to do. Just think about that. Because this is again one of my other favorite books. Third, right? This number, not even has a lot of collection, but these are the top three, right? I'm gonna spend a little time because this is one of my favorite ones. Because this book really explores manhood, family responsibility, leadership, discipline, and community restoration. The purpose of introducing this book is not to suggest that every participant must agree with every conclusion. Strong text should invite examination, dialogue, agreement, and thoughtful disagreement. Like I said, we all have different backgrounds, beliefs, and cultures and values. But what's our intent together as a people? Right? The civil rights movement, the movement Garvey started, the Garvey Act started. Everybody had the same collective message, right? Are we here to fight civil rights? Are we here to fight voting rights? Are we here to fight for women's rights? Right? What's that central theme, right? Are we here to fight for education? Are we here to fight for housing? Once you get folks together with a vision for the collective, come on, y'all. Ooh, yes. Realizing that all Black people and there are for me, for better or for worse. Then realizing we are dealing with the same plantation in our own way. Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you. Once you recognize that a lot of people have the same frequency as you, because you can't do this by yourself. That's why I said earlier, once you find, again, your purpose, your calling, you connect with other people who have the same kind of thing you do. Right? Then y'all can decide together, okay, are we to collectively fighting for X? The X could be, again, rights for a certain community of people. But you got to decide what that is in your heart and what you're been called to do. But the question becomes now, what does healthy responsibility look like when it's rooted in love? Y'all, this got to be through love. You got to channel that anger into love. Going back to the blueprint, right? One of my favorite teachers, one of our people I love to read about is Malcolm X, El Hajmi El Shabazz, because he loved the work so much. You gather just from your voice and just from your passion, people will come to hear you. Whether you're in the classroom, whether it be in your house chilling, when you got something to talk about that's you're passionate about, folks gonna come hear you. So again, these are ordinary people who had a strong vision. What they saw the problem. They connected the problem with their passion, right? All he did was speak for the people. Muhammad Ali, right? Others along the way, Fred Hampton, Booker T. Washington, Dr. Mary Clyde Bethune. It applies both ways. You have a clear vision where you're trying to go, partner. But for my brothers, black men, once you know who you are, once you love yourself enough, once you recognize your past, your history, your belonging, brothers, the vision's clear. You shouldn't. There will be people in your way that will knock you off your vision. Best believe that. I'm on witness. There will be people in the way that will knock you off your vision. So that's why if you don't know who you are in your place in the world and what you're grounded upon, you can repeat the same mistakes. So I implore you, black men, as you even look at this book, that make sure your vision is clear, that you know your responsibility for yourself, for your community, for your people. Because the responsibility is really rooted only in pressure they may produce through performance, through silence, fear, or exhaustion. Yes, the work can be a little part of this package. You're going to be exhausted a little bit. You might have, there are times you might have doubt. That's part of the journey, right? Because if that was the case, everybody would do the same thing, right? Everybody be, oh, I can do it. This ain't for the weak, partner. Thank you for that. Get your questions. I'm ready for your questions. I'm speaking from my experience. This took me a long time to get to this point. Oh, Keith, you couldn't speak well. That was when I changed. So so when people said that, oh, Keith, I ain't gonna speak about nothing. I'm gonna be quiet. But for reading these books, breaking that chain of psychological slavery, know my vision is for black men, and knowing thyself, y'all, come on. Dangerous. You come dangerous. In a way that this is my calling, this is my purpose. Although this book really focuses on black men, its questions affects everybody, right? As I mentioned, it affects families, affects communities. The formation of healthy men is not solely a men's issue. It's a collective implications. Think about that. It takes a village to raise a child. Now, if y'all want to go deeper in this, like I said, we can go deep with Naeem Akbar. The community itself, Life from Africa, Akbar papers in African psychology, the natural psychology, human transformation. Y'all, this stuff get deep. And y'all see, this is my recommendations. These are my recommendations. This is how I went about this reading about him. Again, once I know what that chain was mentally, first, like what that chain was, then, okay, how can I rebuild myself to know myself, right? I got to remove the chain. I got to love myself, right? I need a clear vision for myself. Then, okay, let me go a little deeper, right? So chain, what that doubt is, wherever that thing that's holding you back, got to break it. Then I love myself, who I am, where I came from. Then, okay, what's my vision? What am I supposed to do on earth? Am I supposed to be a teacher, a scientist, an engineer that's going to benefit my people when I learn this knowledge? Then, okay, I get a little deeper on how can I help impact the community while being a light, while understanding, this theoretical framework of African psychology. Then, okay, how can I apply it to the natural psychology, human transformation? And these are my recommendations. These here, I was going to play the video, but you'll make sure you all will get these resources. Y'all can click on these different videos. Trust me, y'all. Please watch these videos. It will change your life. This man been doing this thing for a long time, and I'm still at awe every time I watch these videos. So The videos are available for you all to review as a resource, to add to your library, as see fit. So just you know take that time to understanding what that is, right? Because these are, again, these are just pathways to knowledge of self. These are tools. So as you all watch your videos, look at the books, think of them as tools, right? How can I use these tools now that I've get from reading to help better the communities I serve? And as you think about these videos here again, what is about Akbar saying in this space? What problem is he responded to in that time and space? Whether it be the 80s when he started getting his work, 70s, 80s to today. What's the problem today? Whose worldview is being centered? And what action does the idea invite? Right? As y'all looking at videos, particularly, think about that part. What is he trying to what is he talking about? What is he trying to solve, right, for our people? Because as I said the whole time, you kind of notice it ain't about myself or Akbar. He said, okay, how can I help? Think about the community, right? But first, I gotta make sure KG is tight on the information, so I can be prepared to share knowledge with other people, right? Just think about the videos as y'all watching the videos. A little self audit, right? You got all this information from today, you got these conversations today. Just think about, what story about Black people, Africa, or yourself did you have to unlearn? Just think about that. What story about African people, Black people, did you have to learn, right? Because you have to deconstruct what you learned already about the idea that was planted by somebody else. And think about who helps you remember who you are. Who's that person, that mentor, that friend, that mother, that auntie? Who's that cheerleader in your space? The elder, a nana, baba. Who's that person that's there to provide encouragement to you, right? Look within, right? What image, fear, or belief still tries to define you? Am I a troublemaker? Am I a no good dog? Am I not? I'm not good enough. Right. That I am tied to things instead of myself. I'm tied to this BMW, this house, this chain, these shoes, this degrees. Great. That stuff is great. That I'm not even knocking that stuff. But how is that defining you? That I am attached to all this stuff? And looking forward, what practice can you begin this week to strengthen your knowledge of self? Because, like I said, the goal first is I gotta know what's behind. I gotta do like a re-audit on the past. Then I love myself enough. Okay, from that, what do I take moving forward to help others with the same struggle? Just think about that. Just take a little self-reflection point, right? As we conclude tonight's conversation. Because education is never only the transfer of information. It also connects and communicates whose knowledge matters, whose history deserves attention, and who has the authority to interpret the world. Because miseducation occurs not only when incorrect information is taught, it can also occur through omission of information, distortion, invisibility, or the repeated messages that meaningful knowledge always comes from somewhere else. So, again, little questions. What would change if students or yourself saw themselves as heirs, kings and queens, builders, creators, and interpreters of knowledge? How would that curriculum change? How would teaching change? How might student confidence or responsibility change? What would that assessment look like now for our communities? An Afrocentric classroom can begin with students' names, histories, communities, questions, lived environments. It can include African civilizations. It can include diaspora voices. It can include primary sources, local history, and community knowledge. because education can support knowledge of self, but that knowledge may also be reinforced outside the classroom. Can't be just in the classroom. Are we teaching again outside our communities? Action matters. Yes, we aren't backwards. Ebonics isn't backwards. Our names, traditions. I've just been looking through the lens of sister. Yes, yes, yes. The answer is yes to that. Think about that lens, right? When you take, okay, who are we comparing ourselves to? Think about that. Who are we comparing ourselves to? Because knowledge of self becomes durable when it's practiced collectively. So we again, as a people, we gotta agree on something as a people. We have to agree. If it's the music, if it's the food, if it's teaching, like we have to agree. We love fried chicken as a people, collard greens and all that stuff. But what we how are we practicing that as a collective, right? A single lecture may inspire someone. Like y'all might be inspired tonight. I appreciate that. Y'all happy, inspired, cool. A repeated family or community practice can help form identity. Think about that. Think about that. Repeated family or community practice can help form your identity. We all gotta be the same page. Because family memory includes stories, names, photographs, places, recipes, struggles, victories, lessons, rituals, rhythms, prayer, reading, meals, celebrations, service, journaling, study, and mentorship, right? That's practice, right? How are we again pouring to other people? How are we celebrating one another? How are we writing stuff down? What kind of type of community services are we doing for our people? Then, okay, how we repair the community? It requires accountability. It requires conflict resolution. We can't be always yelling at each other. That's not the case. How can we show each other love through the space? How can we listen to each other? How can we forgive each other? How can we protect each other, y'all? How can we love and care for each other? And this last one right here is my youth development. Youth development connects identity to discipline, the love, and the service. So the takeaway, liberation not only an idea, it's a cultural practice, you all. We got to practice what we preach. Last few months here, again, y'all get me teared up here too. Don't avoid the shame, y'all. Do not turn psychological change to blame against the people harmed by oppression. Avoid oversimplifying this thing. Not every problem has a cause, and not every person experiences identity in the same way. Respect each other's differences of perspectives. Like I mentioned, you may be from Chicago, I may be from Atlanta, but we both agree that we're two black men trying to figure this thing out together. Invite discernment. Students can appreciate Akbar's contributions while asking thoughtful questions. Just ask questions. There's no dumb question because you're trying to gain knowledge by asking questions, right? Who am I? What do I do? Where do I come from? Why do I like this? Why don't I like this? And stay grounded. Using data and sources, respectful languages to each other, and clear distinctions between fact and interpretation. We can be honest about harm and still speak from a place of dignity, repair, and hope. Like be real what happened. Even to this day, programs getting cut, salaries being cut. Again, this ain't nothing new under the sun. Right? That's the book of Proverbs, those who read. They not new. This has been done before. This has been done before. How do you stay grounded in who you are, your place in the world? Ooh, I'm about to write that question down. To be honest, from my where I sit, I haven't seen that shift yet. We're talking about a few things as far as our mental health. So yes, if this practice can be adopted, yes, it will be a shift. But again, that's a part of education. the collective had to agree that we're going to shift our approach from what we've been doing to this doing. You might see more healing. Again, going back to knowledge of self, right? If you know who you are, let's introduce that to the classrooms, to our HBCUs, PW, wherever, right? Wherever you are. That requires knowledge of self, that you have the understanding what that means of that shift. And everybody collectively has to be on board with that shift. Because some people aren't ready to leave the plantation as of yet. 2026, y'all. How long have we been free? So again, you have to be prepared for resistance when you're introducing a new concept that's already been here. Concept been here for a minute. It could be you could be the one to start the movement. Thank you for that. So again, as I conclude some of the last slides, this is about my last slide here. Now, again, we know what happened the last couple 100 years. That I truly believe in my heart that we're in a period of recovery and rebuilding. That this hand that's dealt to us has showed us what it is. We have to be honest about what's going on. We have to be honest about recentering ourselves. If you want to be in a space, Africana values, people, and experiences should be at the center. Because once you rebuild that knowledge, it turns into discipline, practice, and community care. This is a Sankofa movement. Look back with purpose. Got to look back for a reason. Like, okay, what did they do? So you can move forward with clarity. Now I see what I need to do, right? Because now I see my purpose. Now I have a clear picture, a clear clarity and vision on the path forward for myself, for my community, and for the nation. With that, again, these are assignments. Think about, things you can work on yourself, call to action. You can begin read more articles around this. I would implore you all, option B, write your statement, write your Nia. Nia means purpose in Swahili. What do you need more clarity about? And as y'all look at the videos and books, think about, what book resonate with me the most, right? What can I get from the book in terms of moving that chain, that memory, and want to practice towards freedom? Right? And find some people. If you want to talk to me, we can do a group discussion about this. Because now we're in the application phase, right? Got all this information, cool. Teach other folks. How are you informing your communities now? How are you informing the school system? Because they ain't gonna change unless you change yourself. But now we got to think now the next generation of people coming behind us. So think about forming a group. I can help with that. I love talking to folks, about the truth. This ain't Keith. This is what the book says, right? Final thought: knowledge of self is not a finish line. It is a practice of remembering, choosing, and building. With that, I am done. These are the sources I used, and that's it. Thank y'all for your time. I hope I didn't bore y'all too much. Yes. It takes more little spark to light that match, to light the fire. I am open. You have my information. Please reach out. We are the change which we seek.
I'm just popping on real quick because it's my school and I can. I want to thank you very much for this. It's really important to us. I'm covering my mouth because I busted my lip and it looks terrible. I walked into a shower door. It's crazy. But what I'm going to do is if you could send me those links from your slides and I can send them out to the students so that they can go through some of those videos that you mentioned, that would be great. And I do think that there's room for more conversation about this, particularly when it comes to studying Akbar and studying this idea of knowledge of self. I think we're in a moment right now, and just quickly on the question about academia, as an Africologist and as somebody who trained under Dr. Asante, we are making every effort we can to expand this work and this focus. And you all have to recognize, um, definitely. Well, yeah, I'll send out his. He sent me his social media stuff. I'll put it in the email as well. But the minute Dr. Asante came and decided to challenge Eurocentricity is the day that academia decided he was public enemy number one. Because anytime you try to tell them that your Eurocentric ways of being are wrong and that not everything is universal, they lose their minds. They've been losing their minds for decades over this, and they have been fighting against this. And so, as Afrocentric scholars, we have to make those extra efforts to try to expand this knowledge of self, this history, this education, this Afrocentric ways of being, which is one of the reasons why I created Sankofa Summer School, but also like how it shows up in psychology, in our study of history, in our study of culture, in politics, in aesthetics. Right now, there's a whole conversation about whether Black students can wear do-rags to school or not, and bonnets. Like, this is not what we need to be talking about, right? And we need to be deconstructing this. There's a lot going on with people deconstructing their religion and like kind of reconsidering everything. And that's really all that Afrocentric scholars want people to do. Ask questions, interrogate, figure, like, until you can stop asking the question why. And you might find yourself right back where you began, but at least you went through the journey of questioning and challenging, you know, what you've been taught. And that's what we hope that people gain out of, you know, these sessions that we have and these things that we do. Keith, I want to thank you so much. I just want to say one final thing to folks before we go, but everybody, thank you, thank Keith for being here. We really appreciate you, and we'll talk soon. Okay. I just want to say to everybody, we have made it halfway through Sankofa Summer School. This year, first class we had was my class on cinema with John. Then Kimberly did her class, which was amazing. Sierra, she did her class on the HBCUs. We just had one yesterday. My gosh, like, it was just so brilliant. Like, I can't even wrap my head around the ancestors and the quantum physics, and just, oh my gosh, it was fantastic. So we've been having some, and then we have the class tonight, and we've been having some really great classes. And I just want to make sure you all know we do have more coming. So this Wednesday, we're going to have someone come and talk about Assata Shakur and her legacy, and with her liberators who actually queer, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because that's something that a lot of people don't know. We're going to have a class on maroonage and like Louisiana resistance that's coming up with somebody from Louisiana, right? These are the things that are coming up. And then next week we have a class that I'm totally fascinated in, an Italian-born African woman who is talking about fashion, right? Like, this is the Black fashion. Like, this is super important, and we really hope that you join us and come through the end, when we will have Jamie Nesbitt Golden, award-winning journalist, come and talk about crafting our own narratives as journalists. And I think that that's the appropriate class to finish with, because all of this really is about telling our stories and crafting our narrative. So I hope that you all can come out. If you registered for any of the classes, make sure you check your email, because we did send out the links to all of the classes, right? This is a pay what you can model. We do hope that you support our instructors. The money goes to the instructors. So if you appreciated Keith's class tonight, feel free to go to sankofasummerschool.com/donate, make an extra donation. You can go to the register page, and you can, hit up the links and apps that I put up there. The money goes directly to the instructors. So we really hope that you support that. And I appreciate when you guys have, saying things like the classes have been wonderful, they come in at the right time. This is what we're trying to do, right? And so spread the word, let people know that they can come and they can be a part of this. We know not everybody can make it live. That's why we record them. That's why we send them out, so people can watch on their own time. But we really appreciate you. I'm going to sign off now. I hope to see you all soon. And yeah, next time I'll be live will be Thursday. But we hope to see you Wednesday for the one about Assata Shakur. Okay.